Men's tennis and women's tennis are completely almost two separate sports. So I'm like, if I were to play Andy Murray, I would lose 6-0, 6-0 in 5 to 6 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, because it's true. It's true. It's a completely. It's a completely different sport. The men are a lot faster. They serve harder. They hit hard. It's just a different game. And I love to play women's tennis. And I only want to play girls because I don't want to be embarrassed.
He doesn't like cookies.
Because I believe so strongly in women's equality, I refuse to give you preferential treatment.
Well, that's really cool, Schmidt. Wait a minute.
So let's talk about this Serena John McEnroe thing. Everybody already heard about it. I usually try to fall back and doing the commentaries and things that everybody's talking about, but this is something I actually want to talk about for a minute because I knew it was going to eventually blow out into a problem. As you already know what happened, John McEnroe was on NPR. He was asked a question, and he did the unthinkable. He answered honestly how he really felt. And I've noticed the situation often that when a man, women make up shit like this mansplaining thing, or which is simply being condescending, but this thing where when men interject or they are in a debate and they overtalk whatever, women say you're mansplaining. But I find it, I guess you can call this woman-splaining, because I don't know how many times I've seen a situation where a man and a woman are having a conversation, usually about Serena, or you can insert any female that's good at what she does in her space, and the man will say, well, she's the greatest female athlete, and then the woman will cut them off and say, no, she's the greatest athlete, right? And John McEnroe was one of the first dudes who actually wasn't a pussy, and he pushed back and said, no, I meant what the fuck I said. She's the greatest female athlete. She probably wouldn't rank well amongst the men. And what's funny about this is that, Serena herself said it on David Letterman's couch. She said, the men play a different game. They use a different ball. They're much faster. And whatnot. And that's one of the reasons why when her and her sister were doing the whole equal pay stuff, I'm like, well, if you want to get paid as much as the men, you need to play on their level. You need to play as many sets. And you honestly, in reality, you need to play against the men, right? So it's like, that squashes all that, right? All this unequal pay bullshit. Like, you don't play the same game as them. Your game is not as physical as theirs. I'm going to argue that because, if they played more sets, I think that would probably change the nature of their game. Because when Serena played the one chick when she was allegedly dating Drake and she lost to the Italian chick was like the 10th seed. She was like, she shouldn't have been there, type of thing. And Serena lost, which she could have broke the record. But that chick she played was like not good. She was not good. And so it's like, if Serena, the greatest female tennis player, is struggling with a 10th seed chick who Venus beat like a week later in that same tournament, Venus beat her. Now, of course, Serena is far superior than Venus and the chick that beat her. So it's like, this ain't even a conversation that should be happening, right? If Serena's struggling with a 10th seed tennis player, she doesn't fare a chance with the top 100 male players. Now, John McEnroe set 700. I would hope that she's not that bad. I would hope that she could beat some dudes in the 400 or 500 range. I don't follow tennis. I couldn't even name you the top 10 male tennis players. All I know is Andre Agassi. I don't even know if he's still popping. But I would hope that she could beat at least, not 700 though. Like goddamn, like that's really bad. But he does know tennis. He is relevant. He has been a fair commentator when it comes to Serena and Venus. Everyone has said that. So he gave his opinion. But my issue is just beyond this though. It's like, what he said was not wrong. What he said was correct. And watching black women use this as one of those black men don't defend black women, black men aren't keeping for her and defend. Like, what does it defend? Like, what he said was correct. He wasn't wrong. She herself said, out of her own words, it was an NPR interview. NPR is supposed to be this whole be honest, be open, say how you feel. I think there was some tongue-in-cheek with it because he is, John McEnroe, known for being like a hothead, just like Serena, yelling at the refs and all that stuff. She does the same shit. And there was some tongue-in-cheek in it. He's trying to sell his book too. He sparked a little bit of controversy, even though he didn't say nothing that was wrong. So I think there was an element of that too. But I think it brings out a bigger conversation because you have these dialogues where women want to be in a great conversations, right? They don't want the distinctions made, but there are clear distinctions. But they want to be. Serena is definitely in the GOAT conversation. She's definitely. I would say millennials know her as the greatest female athlete, but some folks a little bit older might say FloJo because she dominated her sport the same way Serena's dominating her sport. And one might argue because FloJo has competed against other melanated people that, you know, some would argue like, yo, she might fare better, right? But we have all these nuanced conversations about male athletes. All this year we've been talking about is LeBron's legacy tarnished. Yo, he's taken too many L's. He's been in 7 straight finals. He's only won 3 out of 7. He's taken too many L's. He can't be in that conversation anymore. But there are people who don't think that Jordan should be in a great conversation because Wilt and Dr. J and I forgot the coach who has the 11 as a player and a coach, and then Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, like those boys got the rings, they got the MVPs and all that, and they dominated the league too. There's arguments about Jordan didn't win before he got Scottie Pippen. He got swept in the first round. So there's so many nuanced debates. I grew up as a Shaquille O'Neal player fan when he was, you know, dominating those years when he was with LA. I'm not a Lakers fan, but I was a fan of his style of play. But I could acknowledge, like, yo, the East didn't have a dominant big man. Like, the last time the East had a real dominant big man was when he played for Orlando, right? He left and went to LA. And for the long, like, people talking about, you know, Aisha Curry, the NBA's fixed, blah, blah, blah. Like, I stopped watching basketball years ago. Like, shit is just boring to me. Like, seeing how the East could never really compete, watching how the West pretty much had all the dominant teams. Like, their playoff situation was better than watching the finals because the East just couldn't compete. When you had Iverson, when Philly go to the chip and win one game against the Lakers, like, that shit was just sad to watch. Like, this shit's boring. Like, I pretty much missed the whole prime of Dwayne Wade. Like, I wasn't watching basketball when he was popping. I watched a little bit when LeBron came to the Heat, but I'm saying when he was popping by himself and winning, and before he got injured, I didn't know nothing about Dwayne Wade because I wasn't watching basketball. I went from the whole I only watch the playoffs to this shit is just boring, I don't watch it. But I'm saying Shaq was definitely the last good big man. He ushered back in the dominant big man. Like, before that, and I think in '98, that's when Chicago beat them in the Eastern Conference Finals. They didn't have a big man in Chicago era, and I'm saying Shaq was the dude who ushered that era back in. And I'm saying all this to say this, that as much as I was a fan of Shaq, I can admit, other than David Robinson, other than Tim Duncan, who was soft, he didn't really have any challengers. But that's not his fault that, you know, when he played, you know, George Marison and Sean Bradley and what was the Asian dude, they couldn't compete. And even the other dude who just got traded from Atlanta, who was at LA, he's soft as shit. He was a good defensive player. I can't take that from him. But dude got all the damn kids. I forgot his name. But it's not their fault that they couldn't compete. But those were the guys that Shaq was supposed to be Shaq's competition. George Marison, Sean Bradley, Yao Ming. They couldn't check Shaq, and he dominated them. But there's a nuance enough discussion to say Shaq dominated, but he really ain't had too much competition. Like, that's just being real. But I'm saying we can have all those debates about male athletes, who's overrated, who's underrated. You know, Phil Jackson's legacy is under the gun right now. He's winning his coach, 11 chips, but he had Kobe, he had Shaq, he had Jordan, right? Remove that, what does he have? So I'm saying we have all these discussions about male players, but women who are fighting for this equality thing, egalitarian thing, they want to be mentioned with the GOAT, even though they don't play against men. But to have a conversation about that is sexist, or, you know what I mean, all of the dumb shit, like all these shea butter articles about why can't white men let black women be great? Like, nah, what McEnroe said was correct. It's not an issue. And it goes beyond this, because when you look at what's going on with Trump right now and how, you know, women clap at him, he claps back unapologetically. You will never see that from a black man in public mainstream media. You're just not going to see that. Rosie O'Donnell came at Trump. He's like, you're a fat pig. You know what I mean? Carly Fiorina came at Trump. He's like, yo, look at her face. Right? The chick from Morning Joe, you know, with the leather face, came at Trump. He's like, yo, this chick came to Mar-a-Lago with, you know, she was bleeding from her face. Like, he don't give a shit. And I'm saying, you got the arguments of he's sexist, and I'm like, wait a minute. So women can come and try to be at the big boy table. They want to be immersed in male-dominated spaces, but you can't clap back in with them in the same way they claim it. So you want women to be, you know, they want to be at this table with men, but they want special treatment still. Certain insults are off the table. Same situation with the Becky with the blonde hair, Christian Leahy, and LeVar Ball. She came at that man's family. She came at his parenting style. He claps back at her. Oh, she runs off and does the whole, you hate women, and like, no, she's fair game. And then you had all these people talking about, well, he wouldn't say it to a woman. I'm like, what? Did you not see? I mean, he wouldn't say it to a man. Laura from Hot 97, LeVar Ball wouldn't have did that to a man. There's video of him doing the exact same thing to Stephen A. Smith. When Shaq came at him, he clapped back at him. When LeBron came at him, he clapped back at him. Now, they want to play the semantic and say, well, because it's a woman, you just can't talk about their looks. Like, if you come at somebody, you can't control their clap back. I didn't do a video about it, but when French Montana and the Twitter chick, right, she came at him, she insulted him. Was it petty? Was it corny for some millionaire rapper who's off appropriating black culture, doing his thing? Should he have come back? No. But she clapped at him. You can't control someone's response. Then you had bitch ass Charlemagne trying to, you know, he did the same thing, gave McEnroe donkey today. He would have gave French Montana donkey today. I think he did. I'm not sure. He called French Montana and tried to act like he was managing the situation. Like, yo, you need to apologize to black women. Like, he didn't come at all black women. He came at one who came at him. Right? If you can't take the heat, stay at the kitchen. I'm not. If you go out there and you put yourself out there and you put on your big girl panties and you pop off at the mouth and a man comes back at you, that's on you. That's just how I see it. You can't come back and duck and hide. That's like what Yvette Purnell would do too. Like, she would come at the Nation of Islam, which no men don't even do that, right? In the 70s and stuff, when you do that, brothers was getting killed for that. She come at dudes and come duck and hide. And then Boyce is up here sitting, you know, with his finger crossed, like, you know, I'm not trying to be in the middle of this. I love both of y'all. Like, same thing. Like, most of Boyce's problems came from Yvette, or it came from the one chick who came at Umar Johnson, right? And then they run back, duck and hide, and the Boyce has to come up there and talk for him. Like, nah, let them women stand on their own feet. They spit something, they should be able to back it up. That's just the way I see it. This whole, you want equality, but you got to take the strikes that come with it. You know, as Osage Jackson, equal rights, equal less. That's the nature of the game we live in now. You can't just run back and hide and say, protect me, defend me. Like, no, you popped off at the mouth. Go deal with it. And I'm watching on political commentaries where people are like, yo, what she said, you know, when it comes to Trump and his situation, they came at him, he claps back. That's just what he's going to do. He's not going to be on that bitch ass passive-aggressive stuff that Barack Obama was, where he takes subliminal shots but won't just be honest, and he lets his fans or his crowd do it for him. Trump is going to clap back if you come at him. Unapologetically. That's just who he is. And that's the nature of where we at right now. Women can't keep hiding behind this, I'm a woman, you can't say certain things to me. Those days are over. 2017, you asked for equality, you're about to get it. Serena's like, don't mention my name without facts. What he said was facts. You said yourself you can't be the man. They play a faster game. They, you know what I mean? You've struggled with shitty females, so damn sure no you can't even be. Think about it. Serena's a dominant player. She's a lot more physical, stronger, bigger than all her opponents. But if you look at male tennis players, they're not muscular dudes, right? They're not big. They're not strong. Some of them really like they got six packs. McEnroe wasn't the most athletic looking dude, right? So like, it's not even like a physical thing, from my opinion, for a tennis player. Like, they have to have their cardio game up and all that stuff, and like baseball players, they gotta have the rotator cuffs and all that stuff, get injured, whatever. There's injuries to every sport. They have a problem or whatever. But I'm saying they don't have to look like a dominant player over all the other men. They don't look like a threat. Like, you see a football player, you see a basketball player, the motherfuckers is like 7'9". They're skinny as shit, but they're 7'9". Like, you know what I mean? Football players, no necks, some of them are short, but they're swole as hell. Tennis players, they don't have that. Even hockey players, there's some big ass motherfuckers too, with no teeth and shit. They have an intimidating factor to them. They have a physicality to them. Whereas male tennis players don't even have to have all of that. In fact, I probably think that might even inhibit them from doing the sport. It's a sport of finesse. It's kind of like, I remember when Donovan McNabb was trying to get swole and stuff, and he was getting criticized for being so big. And it's like, do you really need that to be a football player? As, the white commentators were saying, like, he shouldn't be doing that. Even Colin Kaepernick was trying to, before he became an activist, he was taking the pictures trying to be all swollen and whatnot. And now they're saying, though, the flip side is, he's too skinny now. He's a vegan, so he's not holding his weight no more. Which, that is important for football. Like, nevertheless, like, that is important. Being too small or too big is definitely an issue in sports. But, it's just interesting seeing, like, how physically dominated Serena is. And it's like, male sports, it's not a factor. That doesn't change their game. That's just interesting to me. But that's just my video. Women are asking for, the more women are invading male dominated spaces, the more they want to be in GOAT conversations. Stuff like this is gonna happen. And I can't run back and play the female racist card every time this happens. I haven't seen a brother who hasn't agreed with what McEnroe said. All I see is a bunch of women in their feelings, trying to play both sides, making it a racial issue or making it a sexist issue when it's neither one of the two. McEnroe's correct. He kind of when he was on the ABC, I think, on Oprah's girlfriend show, whatever, he kind of did say, well, I'll apologize, but I'm like, come on, man, like, it is what it is. Also, after doing some research, right, something else I wanted to add, after doing a little research, and seeing, like, the 700 dude, like, I thought that number was the shocker, was the kicker. Is it possible she could beat some of those dudes? But the 700 dude still got receipts. The 700 dude still has 7 titles. So, it's a possibility she couldn't beat him either. That just makes it, like, so I did think, hearing that number, because I don't follow tennis, I would think, like, damn, she should be able to at least, right? I don't think any WNBA chick could be any NBA chick, but I'm saying, I think, there's some college players that a WNBA could possibly beat. So I'm thinking, like, in those terms. But it's almost like how effed up this is when we had people actually flirting with the idea. We had women actually articulating. A lot of white boys definitely was doing this bullshit because they don't like Floyd Mayweather, his cockiness, so to speak. We had people flirting with the idea that Ronda Rousey could beat Mayweather over a female who had 3-4 fights that didn't last 2 minutes in total. But because she was so hyped, because she was the great white female hope, right? We trying to give her accolades that she didn't really earn because she didn't really fight anybody. Again, those nuanced conversations. She didn't really fight nobody. She fought people who were washed up, Misha Tate, people above their prime. But we have people flirting with the idea that she could beat Floyd Mayweather, and then what happens? She loses to Holly Holmes, who was a nobody. So like that's how effed up this media hyped female egalitarianism nonsense going on. It's like they're trying hard to qualify women in conversations they don't qualify for. Like, relax with all that. Like, you got transgenders playing in sports with, like, that alone. When you see these dudes who are pretending to be women playing in female-dominated sports and they're taking over, they had a freshman dude who just changed his identity overnight, compete at a girls' swim sport. I don't know if it was track or basketball, but he comes in, he dominates, right? I remember there was this, I forgot the sport it was, but they didn't have it. It's like, I don't know if it was lacrosse or something. I think it was t-ball, or it was I think it was baseball, softball. But the school didn't have one for boys, and the boy wanted to play. Not on some waste stuff, he just wanted to play the sport. They didn't offer for girls. This dude was like a grammar school kid, smaller than all the girls and all that. They let him play with the high school girls, but then they ended up changing the rules because this smaller kid was dominating the sport for high school kids. This is a little white boy dominating high school senior girls, right? Skipped JV, went straight to high school, and he's in grammar school. So I remember Man Woman vs. Myth did a video years ago where he was breaking down how the fastest female athlete in like the 800-meter race was slower, right? She has the world record time in the Olympics for the 800 meter. I forgot what it was. This is a video he did years ago. But a 15-year-old boy, not developed yet, nowhere near his prime yet, was still faster than the fastest grown woman in the 800 meter. So I'm like, these are realities. So no, when we're talking about Serena being the greatest female tennis player, yes, she's dominating her space and her lane more than anybody else, but she doesn't play against men, so we can't give you the moniker of greatest athlete. Is her name mentioned? If we're not, if we're talking about greatest athletes, is her name in that boat? Absolutely. But we can't give her the greatest greatest tennis player of all times when she can't play against the greatest men, and she can't possibly beat, from what I'm finding out now, the 700 tennis player dude still got championships. He still got tournaments won on his belt. So that's what I got to say in this conversation. Equal rights, equal less. Stop making stories out of non-issues. And Serena knows better. I get it. She has this feminist mystique about her. Girls look up to her. People don't want to look at reality and say like what he said was true. She wants to be left off limits. But if we're going to leave her off limits of these dialogues, then we need to leave her off limits of great conversations, the GOAT conversations then. Let her go off and be in her fictitious fairy tale world where women can beat men. And I get it. If you look at a lot of these movies nowadays, and what I think the new Call of Duty is having a World War II video game where they got black females fighting on the German Nazi side. Oh my goodness, right? You got that's in the name of diversity in video game and all that stuff. That's that Arnedia Sarkeesian shit, whatever. But now you got, if you turn on TV, we didn't have this growing up in the 80s and the 90s, where 110-pound chicks are beating the shit out of 200-pound men. Like, this generation is growing up seeing that. So they're going to have a different perspective on, their world is going to be different, right? When you got Barack Obama, the man giant in chief, saying, oh, these women soldiers, like he's about to make y'all get that equality you asked for, right? He's going to have y'all on the front lines biting off more than you can chew. But he said this one line about, there's these women who could put on a 40-pound backpack that could do more than you or I, right? So if you have, there's a disconnect, right? And it's an unrealistic one where you have all this female empowerment and girls can do this and girls can do that. It's like people are writing checks for women that they cannot cash. Women are women really asking for that type of equality? Are they asking to be on the front lines? They're not. And I think y'all need to be the ones to push back and be like, yo, chill, slow down. You know what I mean? Let's be realistic here. Y'all need to do that before it's too late. Because y'all about to be hitting that draft.
Said to be nuts. They put out a psychiatrist report when he ran for president and said that he was bordering on being crazy.
I know he called her crazy
but
too.
This is what happens to conservatives all of the time.
But he called her crazy, and he called Joe psycho, and he called her low IQ.
Called him crazy.
I don't understand. Okay, but like,
I'm
suspending the fact that he's the president of the United States here, which he should not be doing this as president. But even if I'm just accepting that you think you hit back, fine, he hit back. They called him crazy. Response crazy, but you don't see any difference in going after a woman and claiming that she showed up with her bleeding face from plastic surgery.
As a talk show host. That
has nothing to do with equality.
That's sexist.
There's nothing to do with equality. That equality would be not talking to the woman that way. You're trying to make it out that somehow it's equal for women to be demeaned based on the way they look.
Just like men. Little Marco, case in point.
Ryan, go ahead.
But Jeffrey, look, this is who Donald Trump is, and at this point,